Welcome back to the STLK in the UTA Cougars Podcast. I'm Paul here with Steve. Steve, we came off a big win against Texas Tech last week. We're looking forward to today. BYU at number 7 Texas. Are you excited or what?
This is life in the Big 12. We go P5 to P5. We go, top 40 FBI team to a top 10 ranked team in Texas. We're going to be in Austin. So big weekend for the Cougs. A lot to show. We got a national TV game, ABC afternoon kickoff.
If you want to call that prime time, it's prime time for me.
For college football, I mean, that afternoon slot is maybe the second best, behind the 5 o'clock kick.
Yeah, we had the 5 o'clock click. Wow, that was a tongue twister. 5 o'clock kick last week.
Either way, a lot of eyes going to be on this game.
A lot of eyes. BYU is 4-1 all time against Texas. This is a really important note. If BYU loses this weekend, 96-0, we will still be outscoring Texas all time in our 5 matchups.
That's what 4-1 gets.
Yeah, it does.
I know the one lost 2011. We lost by 1 point in
17-16.
17-16. Yep. BYU has a great track record against Texas. It's likely going to be hard to repeat that performance this weekend. Mm-hmm. Who knows?
Who knows, man? Our most recent victory, 2014. A lot of people know this. That's Taysom Hill's game. He had a lot of rushing yards.
200 some odd rushing yards. He's got the hurdle. He's got the stiff arm.
It was against a Longhorn team that was ranked 25 going into this game. And a lot of people thought, okay, if BYU...
Is Texas back?
Is Texas... they weren't. A lot of people thinking going into this game, I remember vividly, if they can get this win against BYU, does this launch them into the top 15, top 10? Taysom had no part in that and no interest in helping Texas's narratives that year.
Sad enough, I was on my mission for both the Texas games.
Oh, really?
2013, 2014. I was in Hungary serving the Lord. But yeah, obviously you hear about it. You see some of the highlights and you see the hurdle. Nobody forgets that.
Nobody forgets that. I listened to those games on the radio, both of them. I was actually on a road trip with my family, and my dad loves Greg Wrubell. I think he has a poster above his bed of him. And I remember vividly just listening to Greg the whole night, whole time driving. We were on the East Coast, so it was a little bit later for us. But yeah, man, those were great games. You missed them. I didn't watch them either, but obviously we probably saw just
big games in the history of BYU football. To beat a program like Texas, the 4th all time in wins in the country.
Okay,
right ahead of them, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, and then 4th is Texas. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame's following right after. So one of the most storied programs in the nation, the biggest athletic department budget in the nation. They have Longhorn Network, right? They have their own TV station.
Correct.
And so they have a stadium that holds 100,000 plus. And funny enough, as I was looking at the stadium, they actually planned originally to build it bigger than the Big House, bigger than Michigan Stadium. Okay. They were going to go above 110,000 people. I guess the plans aren't over. They still could continue to extend the one end zone, but they put them on pause for now. But massive stadium, massive team, massive athletic department, huge opportunity for the Cougs.
Let's talk about this year. Texas is ranked number 7, maybe number 8, depending on which poll you're looking at right now. They have one loss, and it was in the Red River rivalry game against an Oklahoma team who's also really, really good this year. If BYU is going to go down to Austin in this primetime spot, what needs to happen for them to walk away with a win?
We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. They got to get out to a quick start. Mm-hmm. They cannot have these lethargic first quarters where they're not scoring points. And so a quick start, I think, is huge. Put a little bit of doubt in Texas's mind, right? Texas is going to run out there, their backup quarterback. Obviously, everybody knows Quinn Ewers has a grade 2 AC separation in his throwing arm. You saw him in the sling. Texas won't have the number 1 quarterback. We'll see if Arch Manning gets reps. Coach Sarkisian said this week that he and Malik Murphy, the backup quarterback, are going to split reps this week in practice. So we'll see who Texas runs out there. But I think the first key to the game for BYU is they got to get out to a quick start. As BYU always does, there's a big contingency of fans in South Texas, Central Texas. BYU is going to turn out a lot of fans. They got to get their fans up and excited to start the game. They can't have one of these games where we're throwing a pick 6 or we're fumbling the ball or we're letting them to drive down our throats and score the first possession. Quick start's going to be big.
Texas is so good that even if our offense doesn't come out on fire, but our defense does, and the scores, let's say the score is they're at 7, we're at 3 halfway through the second quarter, that's a win for BYU.
I think for BYU to win this game, it's got to be a lower scoring game.
Yes.
BYU's defense has to hold Texas offense, and BYU's offense has to possess the ball, right? Yeah. We talked about it on Tuesday's pod. BYU's average drive in the second half this last week against Texas Tech was 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. BYU has to have their offense on the field for longer stretches of time and convert those into points, whether it's touchdowns or field goals. BYU has to finish their drive with points, and they can't be going 3 and out.
Sorry, when I said a 7-3 halfway through the second quarter win, it's a metaphorical, it's a morale win at that point, just because you feel like you can hang with them. Odds are, and I'm not sure what the ESPN FPI says, BYU probably won't win this game. But what we can do is prepare for the rest of the year. We have a pretty strong schedule the rest of the year. We finished the year, I believe our second to last game is against Oklahoma. There's things we can take away from this game, whether it's a win or a loss, that will help us down the road. So I think just being able, like you said, hold this Texas offense to not 49 points. Don't let them get into the 30s by the third quarter. That's going to help us a long way down this road.
Nobody expects BYU to go to Austin and win this game, but BYU is one of 4 teams in the country that has a winning record against Texas and Oklahoma. There's not many teams that win a lot of games against Texas and Oklahoma. BYU's 17.5-point dogs as of this morning. So nobody's expecting them to win.
Line opened at 20.5, by the way.
So it's dropping towards BYU. And yes. I think part of that is the injury, right?
Yep.
Texas has had 1 or 2 players leave the program last week. I saw some headlines on that. BYU looked pretty good against Texas Tech. There's probably some money landing on BYU's side now. FPI gives BYU a 5.1% chance of winning this game. So like I said, nobody's expecting BYU to go in and win this game. They even give BYU a better chance to win at home against Oklahoma. So this is the toughest game remaining on BYU's schedule, likely. Going to Austin, a stadium that's going to be absolutely jam-packed against a top 10 opponent. It's been a while since BYU's played a top 10 opponent. They played Baylor to open the season last year and beat Baylor.
Yep.
They probably weren't a top 10 team. They were a little overranked last year. Baylor was.
Agreed.
But in 2018, BYU goes to Wisconsin. They're jumping around in the fourth quarter, and BYU pulls out the win at, I believe, number 9, Wisconsin in 2018.
Yes, it was. If your memory serves both of us correct, then it was. Let's talk trends for a moment. BYU, post-COVID, is 2 wins, 9 losses in their last 11 matinee matchups. In their last 7 night games post-COVID, 7-0. Does that mean anything? If we throw out everything else, is that the one thing going to take us to a loss this weekend, or do you think that doesn't matter?
I have a hard time believing in the stat, but there is something there.
Yeah.
Like we talked about last week, BYU is playing better teams in these primetime slots, in these 1:30 or 2:30 kicks. Obviously, Texas is a very high-quality opponent. If BYU loses this game, it's not because the sun is up or the sun is down. It's not like we're vampires out here, but Texas is a very good team. And so we talked about keys to the game, right? BYU has to have a hot start. BYU has to be able to run the ball. We saw flashes last week. We averaged 5 yards a carry against Texas Tech. I think there's opportunity there for BYU to continue to expand. The offensive line is going to continue to gel with Connor Pay now at the center position, which is probably his more natural position that he's played the last couple of years, making some of those calls. We don't know, but maybe early on some of the calls were missed or were missing blocks, and now we have Connor Pay, our veteran center, back in the lineup. So I do see BYU wanting to run the ball in this game. Texas has athletes everywhere, obviously, 4 and 5 stars all over the field, but they are susceptible, right? This team isn't a perfect team. They did lose to Oklahoma in a great game at the Red River Rivalry there at the Texas State Fair. This last week, they looked very, very mortal, we can say, against a Houston team.
That game was right there for Houston.
It was at the end. It's in Houston. Houston's driving to win the game. They have a 4th and inches. They got what I think most fans would agree was a really poor spot. They end up turning the ball over. I think it was within the 10-yard line. But if Houston converts that to a touchdown, they either kick the PAT for the tie or they go for 2 to beat Texas at home. And so they are susceptible. They also had Wyoming early on in the season at home. It was a game in the fourth quarter. It was a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. They ended up pulling away late. But Texas, a very, very high-quality team, but not immortal.
Just to loop back and finish up on this afternoon slot games, of the 9 losses we've fell in the last 3-4 years since post-COVID, these are the teams we've played. UAB, not a great loss. Oregon, Notre Dame, Arkansas, Kansas, TCU, all good losses. Those are teams that you expect to lose to. I brushed over the Liberty game that we lost by 30. Don't remember that one. But 7 of those 9 losses are against reputable programs. If we do lose this weekend, it's not the end of the world either, because we have a schedule. We have 1 more game to become bowl eligible, and it probably won't come this weekend. It might. It'd be sweet if it did. What does the rest of our schedule look like? Read it off real fast.
So we have Texas this week, FPI 5.1% chance of winning. Nobody is expecting us to win. We go to Morgantown next weekend. That's a game where FPI has given BYU a 33% shot. I like our odds a little bit better than 33% in that game. West Virginia is a team that looked really good early, and it seems like they've fallen off quite a bit. Now, they do play better at home than they do on the road. Morgantown's a tough place to play. I was at the game at FedEx Field in Washington when we played West Virginia at a neutral site, and man, they have some crazy fans. If I remember right, it was either a morning or a noon kickoff, and by noon, these fans were no longer sober, right? And so they have a great fan base out there in Morgantown. BYU 33% chance to win that that game according to ESPN's FPI. Then we have Iowa State at home, which is our best opportunity to grab a win, to grab our 6th win to get bowl eligible. Again, ESPN FPI only has us at a 43% chance to win. I'm saying 65% chance that we squeeze that game out. Then we have Oklahoma at home, 7.5%. We finish in Stillwater on Thanksgiving weekend, and currently FBI has us slated at 27.8%. So I don't know if I'm being overly optimistic, but a lot of these percentages seem low to me.
I agree.
I give BYU a better shot than it seems like the computer models are giving them. But overall, FPI gives BYU a 75.1% chance to get to 6 wins and get bowl eligible.
So we have 5 games remaining. Is that left? Is that correct? Or 4?
Texas, West Virginia, Iowa State, Oklahoma State. 5 games.
They're giving us a 25% chance to go winless.
Yeah. We go 0 for to finish the year.
Finish the year with 5 wins. I don't see that happening, right?
I don't see it happening either. BYU is going to win one more game before the season's out. Whether it's that Iowa State game at home, like I said, I think they could steal that one on the road against West Virginia. Oklahoma home's hard to say that we're going to win that game.
I love BYU in that spot already. I just want to put this out there right now. If BYU opens as underdogs by anything more than 14 points, you have to hammer that. I think BYU is going to play really, really close in that game.
It's going to be a great game. Yeah, absolutely. And then we go to Stillwater to finish the year. Again, ESPN saying we have a 1-4 shot of winning that game. I like our odds a little bit better than that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see when we become bowl eligible. If you would have told me 6 months ago, hey, our first season in the Big 12, we're going to be bowl eligible, and it's not going to be pretty, but we're going to get there, I'd say, sweet. I don't care how we get there. We're going to a bowl game. That's awesome. I'm not sure. Maybe you know what bowl game we would go to if we finish right at 6 games. But either way, man, it's a lot of reason for optimism inside of the program right now, coming off a very, very convincing win against Texas Tech.
Yeah, like you say, 6 months ago, I think any of us would have taken 5-2. We would be surprised by how BYU's winning games, right? Again, the stats against Texas Tech didn't look great, but then again, we had 5 turnovers. Yeah. We caused 5 turnovers and we only had 0 ourselves. So looking at the bowl lineup, there's some more unanimity among the sports heads and the sports writers. This week was kind of interesting. It's BYU's all over the place. Some say Armed Forces Bowl. Some are saying back to the Independence Bowl. We have the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. That's down in Arizona. So not super excited about the bowl selection that they're currently looking at.
Shreveport.
That luckily was not on the list this week as it was last week. But I will say that some of the projections for BYU's opponent look a little bit exciting. One of the writers had BYU playing Nebraska, which I think would be a fun little callback. To obviously, we have Tanner Mangum throwing the ball to Mitch Matthews and catching it for the win on the last play of the game. That was exciting. Nebraska is obviously a storied program that's been down the last few years. The second one was Boise State. I'd love to play Boise State.
I love Boise State.
It's a great regional rivalry. We've had awesome games against Boise State. The third, I think fans would be pretty disappointed with, was James Madison, a program coming from the FCS level, having a lot of success, but probably not one that fans have heard of or would really get hyped about.
No one's, maybe I'm wrong, no one's opening Ticketmaster at midnight on a Tuesday to get the James Madison tickets.
And BYU fans tend to do well when the games are in areas of the country where there's a good contingency of the church. Obviously, when the game's in the Bahamas, nobody comes, but the players enjoy it in the Bahamas. Shreveport, I don't know that a lot of people show up there, but could we get a game in Arizona? The Armed Forces Bowl, I believe, is in Texas, right? Yeah. A game like that would have quite a few fans turn out. It would be fun.
But back to your point again, for BYU winning these games, so they're 5-2. I don't think one specific game, maybe a couple have been like pretty wins, but the way they're doing it is really interesting. Our turnover margin right now in the FBS, do you know what it ranks at?
I don't.
3rd.
Really?
3rd in turnover margin.
I believe we're plus 16.
Yeah, that's a lot, especially through 7 games. Red zone scoring efficiency, 23rd.
One of the best teams in the nation.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. And then this one's really cool as well. And it goes back to your point from Tuesday's pod. The net field position advantage. Not sure exactly what that means, but you have a rough idea that just our field advantage is really good. 29th in the nation. And that goes back to Recco as the punter, man. He's putting us in a great position. But not only that, you think of it from this angle where our offense isn't stalling out on 3rd and out or 3 and out, very soon in the drive. Like even the drives that don't turn into points, we're either getting in the red zone and scoring, or we're getting to our 40 or 50 and putting them in a bad spot. Which in turn gives us better field advantage again going forward.
Right. I've seen the stats, not BYU specifically, but overall in college football, I've seen the stats on this net field position that you're talking about. It is one of the leading indicators for wins and losses. One of the other big ones is pass efficiency differential. Okay. So our quarterback versus your quarterback, what the pass efficiency numbers look like. But yeah, so it's a big deal. BYU's finding success in starting their drives closer to the end zone. and forcing their opponents to start the drive within their own 15, 10, even 5-yard line, right? And I've seen some of the stats on this. There's a website, I wish I remember the name, but they've put out this graph, and it's over the last 20 years in college football. They've done the NFL as well, and it's the starting yard line of your drive. So whether it's you're starting at the 11-yard line, the 12-yard line, the 25-yard line, or the 50-yard line, and the average number of points that comes from that drive, and it's a perfect linear relation.
I believe it.
The closer you start, and it makes sense logically, the closer you start to the end zone, the higher likelihood you are going to score points. And so it follows that the net field position would indicate who's going to win the game. And like you said, BYU's top 30, it sounds like in the
top
nation.
30 in all three of those is top 29 in net field position. And just to piggyback off that point, last season, Ryan Recco was ranked 5th in the FBS on punt per average yards, but he just didn't punt enough to qualify. I didn't know this. That's pretty cool. This year, he's on pace to qualify. He has 43 punts through 7 games. He's ranked 3rd nationally at 49.1 yards per punt.
And punt average is an interesting stat because when you're pinned deep yourself, you want to kick far.
Yep.
Now, you don't want to kick too far because sometimes you outkick your coverage and they get a good return. We saw that once against Texas Tech this last week, maybe twice. But it's also an interesting stat in that, let's say you're at the 40 or the 50-yard line. You don't want to kick far. You want to kick accurate, right? You want to bounce the ball on the 5 and have one of your gunners go and catch it, or you want to kick it out of bounds within the 10 or 5-yard line. So it's impressive. He's got a massive leg, but I bet if we looked at stats of pinning within the 10 or 5-yard line, I bet he'd be up there too. He's an absolute weapon for this BYU football team.
Well, back to what I just said a minute ago, we're not punting from our own 20 very often. So I think, and I'm curious what the actual stat is, but if you're averaging 49 per punt and you're at least punting from the 50 or further back, that means you're crazy accurate as well because you're not having a lot of touchbacks. And I'm not sure what that's considered as far as yardage on a touchback. I can't imagine them counting all of those yards, but if you're averaging 49 and you're punting between the 30 and 50 every time, that means you're crazy accurate.
Yeah, I'm no expert on punter stats, but after our punter goes All-American, we're going to have to brush up on our punter stats. But like I said, Ryan's an absolute weapon for the team. We've talked about his little brother coming hopefully to BYU as well. He's in high school right now. He's a great kicker. And you got to give credit to the BYU cover team, right? You look at our gunners. We've had some really impressive plays down the field. These are hard tackles to make. So first of all, the gunner's the guy on the end of the line of scrimmage, right? And in college, you typically have one, let's call him a cornerback against you, and his job is to stop you from getting to their returner, right? Your job is to get past that guy. Now, you're running full speed, right? So the ball is snapped. You have to get around that guy, whether it's a swim move or, like a club move, whatever it is, you got to get around that guy. And then you're on a full on sprint towards the returner. And a lot of times the returner is the other team's best player, right? You see the Zacharias guy, number 1 for USC. I watched him live this last week. He had a couple really impressive returns. Now imagine running full speed down the field. This guy catches the ball. He just has to make one quick move and you miss, right? So BYU's done a great job on their punt coverage team. Last week we saw someone out of the shield, right? So they snap the ball and they have those 3 guys come together. I think they're all D linemen this year for BYU to form the shield to make sure the punt doesn't get blocked. One of the guys on the shield is Tyler Batty, and that's a big man. That's an NFL body on the D line running down the field and lighting up their returner and causing a fumble. And so not only credit to Ryan, but also to the special teams unit as a whole, the long snapper, right? You got the gunners, those that are blocking and those that are covering.
I think this year specifically, our special teams has been better than I can remember in a very, very long time. I don't know the stats on this, but when you have a good special teams, you usually win a lot of games, and that's turning into a lot of wins, and these stats say just that. You have something on the mascot. You texted me really excited about this mascot thing. I want to hear it.
One of the things I like to do when BYU is playing opponents is look into not only the history of their program, but I love mascots as well.
Okay.
And when I say mascot, I mean live mascot. There's nothing better than a live mascot. And I've been on this calling card here for a while at BYU. BYU absolutely needs a live cougar. You can't tell me that wouldn't be incredible.
No, well, it'd be scary.
It might be a little bit dangerous. I think we saw the video a couple years ago of the hiker up in the Wasatch Mountains.
If we can get that exact cougar.
Yeah. Do you remember that? And the cougar, I was really surprised by how they attacked. They were like flapping his arms. You remember this? And he's like hissing. And you've heard before that that's not an actual cougar sound.
That was really close.
Thank you. I've practiced. But to have a live cougar at the game, I'm a big fan of live mascots. So like we've talked about, I was at USC last week and they have, I believe Traveler is the horse's name. It's this beautiful white horse, and he's running around the field and they're doing their dance. You got Ralphie, which I think is one of the best entrances in college football. It's fun to see Colorado good again. You got the American Bison running out there. And then you got Bevo. Everybody knows Bevo. Bevo's the Texas Longhorn. We're on Bevo 16. This is Bevo 16. He's been the mascot for the University of Texas Longhorns for 8 years now, since 2016.
Wow.
I think we all remember, if you haven't, you should look it up on YouTube, Bevo charging Uga at the Sugar Bowl back in 2019. Have you seen this video?
Is that the little Georgia dog?
Yeah, the little Georgia, the little bulldog.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were thinking, but they bring they bring the bulldog. He might be in a kennel actually. They bring him up, and Bevo's got like some of those steel fences around him, and Bevo puts his horns down and starts charging the little dog.
No kidding.
So imagine having a cougar there.
Well, do you know what? No, I'm not going to go there, but it would be an interesting matchup. Like a
cougar versus Longhorn.
And I didn't mean to turn this into a special teams and a survival of the fittest podcast, but that would be an interesting matchup to see those two go at it.
All I'm saying is a live cougar needs to run out in front of the team. I think that'd be incredible.
It would fire them up with an amount of loudness that LaBelle Edwards has never heard before.
It would be proud time to be a cougar. I will say though, Bevo, the name Beeve was a slang back in the day, back in the mid 1900s for a steer that you're going to eat was Beeve. Okay. And then they threw the O on the end. So that's Bevo. Yeah. We're on Bevo 16. Bevo 12 was the longest tenured mascot for the University of Texas. Started in 1988, served 16 season, was actually at President George W. Bush's inauguration.
Well, let's bring this back to football then. I appreciate the little mascot history. That was awesome. Arch Manning, for those who don't know, is a top 5 NIL paid quarterback. He's been the backup quarterback or third string, however you want to look at it, for the University of Texas. He's the younger nephew. Is it the nephew of Peyton and Eli Manning?
Correct.
Most known for the Peyton cast on ESPN2. They also played football at one point. So he isn't going to start this weekend. It's going to be Malik Murphy. Is that right? Or what's the plan there?
The presumed starter this weekend is Malik Murphy. He's the quarterback that came in relief of Quinn Ewers when he went out with the AC sprain. Mm-hmm. He's a big guy, 6'5", 235 pounds. He's a 4-star prospect. This is his redshirt freshman year. He was on the team last year. I believe it was his ankle that was hurt. He sat out the year, obviously behind Quinn Ewers then as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, coming out of just south of San Francisco, just north of Palo Alto there in the Bay Area, a really big prospect out of Junipero Serra High School, a Catholic prep school. So he's got some experience. Like I said, he closed out the game against Houston. Give him some credit. They won the game. But Coach Sark said this week, Steve Sarkisian, obviously a former BYU guy himself, the University of Texas head coach, said that both Malik and Arch are going to split reps with the first team, but I think everybody's expecting Malik probably preserving the red shirt of Arch Manning.
Probably. You said it's 4 games and you lose the red shirt, or explain that.
You can play up to 4 games in college football and preserve your red shirt. So Texas has 5 regular season games left. I believe they're already bowl eligible, so they'll have a 5th or a 6th game there. Mm-hmm. So they 6 games left. They only want to play them 4. Now you could say Quinn Ewers isn't out for the season. Coach Sarkisian said it's week to week at this point, and so maybe you bring in your highly touted quarterback now, Arch Manning, and have him cover these next 2 games, and then Quinn Ewers comes back to finish the year. So we'll see.
Bowl games do count against the red shirt. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so here's a theory. So Quinn is declaring for the draft this next year. Is that right? Or you would assume
most would
so.
Assume that. Is he in his 3rd year?
I believe so, yeah, because he had that mullet the first year. Last year he got hurt, and now this year he's clean cut, and it'd be his 3rd year. Arch Manning is presumably an NFL quarterback.
He's got to be the future of the program.
Right, so you have to think, even if you don't preserve this red shirt, and Arch must be thinking this too, like, what can I do to get on the field and start my clock for the NFL right now?
And like you said, he's a top 5 NIL paid college player that has not seen the field, which is pretty surprising.
Yes.
Obviously, he's got the name and he's got the talent. You've seen some of his high school highlights. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see Arch out this week. If he is the starter and plays the whole game, I think I would be surprised. Based off all the articles I've seen, even Texas insiders are still saying Malik is projected to be the starter. So we will see. But like you said, a player of that caliber doesn't want to ride the pine for too long.
No.
And he sees the number 1 quarterback go down, and I'm sure he's saying to himself, like, this is my chance.
Well, because even if he, let's say, plays 3 games this year, and then Quinn comes back, his clock doesn't start, but there's no way if Quinn leaves this year, Malik's not getting that starting nod next year. I can't imagine Arch not starting this year and then sitting behind Malik next year.
If Malik's the starting quarterback in spring ball and through the summer, then Arch is going to transfer.
There's no way he stays at Texas. Yeah,
there's no way that he stays there for the 2nd year. So yeah, again, we'll see what happens. Like I said, all the insiders I've seen are projecting Malik to be the starter this week, but wouldn't be surprised to at least see Arch get out there and get some reps, see what he can do.
Yeah. Keaton Slovis has looked shaky at best on the road in the Big 12. I'm really curious to see what it looks like this week in a really, really rowdy environment. Alabama went to Texas and lost. Is that right?
So Alabama beat Texas in Texas last year barely. It was that terrible roughing the passer call. But Texas went to Tuscaloosa 3 weeks ago and beat Bama.
Okay, so take out what I was going to say about the rowdy environment with Alabama losing. But either way, this is a team that's beaten Alabama. And if you guys don't know who Alabama is, they're a really good program out of Tuscaloosa. And Keaton has to go there and guide this offense. Tell me, do you have any key stats for Keaton, any passing game things? Because we know the running game has to show up. Like, that's been a non-negotiable all season. Is there anything that points to the passing game flourishing and us getting a win this weekend?
So credit to Keaton. His touchdown to interception ratio has been good this year. He doesn't have the yards that you would expect from a fifth-year quarterback, but his touchdowns and interceptions has been good. He's mostly taking care of the ball. I believe he only has 1 or 2 fumbles. Texas Tech, he goes 15 for 27 for a mere 127 yards. And I don't know exactly what's going on with BYU's receivers. Isaac Rex had a decent game last Saturday, I believe 44 yards. Darius Laster was the leading receiver with 47 yards. We've talked about on Tuesday that Chase Roberts only had 9 yards. He did have a score, but something's gone on. I think Chase Roberts might have reported that he's banged up, but BYU has to have a much better passing game. I do think, though, the key to the game is BYU being able to possess the ball. We can't have the defense on the field, basically the entirety of the second half like they were against Texas Tech. BYU has to be able to possess the ball and run the ball. And I pulled a stat on the running game, both from BYU's side and from Texas's side. BYU is allowing 52 more rush yards to opponents than Texas is, and Texas is running for 100 more yards per game than BYU is. So BYU had a good rushing day on Saturday, bumped up their average to 79 yards a game. Texas, though, right now is averaging 179 yards of rushing per game. So for me, the two keys to the game, you got to get a quick start and you have to be able to run the ball and stop the run.
Okay, so this game is going to be won or lost on the ground, do you think? I like it.
I don't see, if BYU is winning this game, I don't see it being because Keaton throws for 400 yards and five touchdowns. I think this is a grinded out, slow-paced game. BYU's best chance of winning is keeping their offense on the field, running the ball, using the advantage of their experienced offensive line, and keeping Texas off the field. Okay,
so that brings me to our last thing. Points not going to be scored a lot this weekend if BYU is going to win. Give me your final prediction score this weekend.
You hate to pick against your team. BYU has been my team since I was born. Worked for the team for 2 years. I'm a pretty avid fan. I do everything I can to give BYU the benefit of the doubt. But I think it's disingenuous to say that I truly believe BYU is going to go in and win this game. I will be there. I'll be at DKR Texas Memorial Stadium. I'm sitting on the 4th row. I didn't find this out until after I bought the tickets, but I'm sitting in the section next to the student section.
Sweet.
In the end zone. So we'll see where my tickets end up being. But going down with a buddy, I'll be at the game. Can't wait to go to Austin. Obviously, they have good barbecue. We're going to play a lot of golf. If I had to predict this one and be 100% realistic, I'm going Texas. I'm saying they're going to get a few touchdowns and probably a couple field goals as well. Let's say something like 24-13 for Texas in this game. BYU covers.
I like the cover there. I think that's that'd be a good loss. 24 points, hold Texas to 24 at home.
If we could go to a top 10 team and lose and cover, I think BYU fans would be pleased.
The line right now is 16.5. I think BYU also covers barely. I think Texas 31, BYU 17. I think those last few points from Texas also come at the end of the game. I think it's going to be, is that a cover? That's a cover, right? It's 17, 16. Either way, I think BYU keeps it close for the first 3 quarters. And I think in the 4th quarter, we see I wouldn't even say talent, but the athletic ability of Texas kind of pull away. But I think this game's going to be a lot closer than most people think up until midway through the 4th quarter.
And I look to guys like Chase Roberts, who has an NFL body at the receiver position, Isaac Rex, guys like Tyler Batty that are going to have a chance to play at the next level. And these are the games where you need these guys to step up big time against these 5-star athletes and the size and the speed of a team like Texas. Obviously, some of those other positions we're not going to be able to match up with them. But if we can have big games from our best players, BYU may go into the 4th quarter with a shot at winning this game. So look for BYU to do all they can to get the ball to their playmakers. One of the biggest differences between a program like BYU just breaking into the P5 and a team like Texas is probably depth, right? And we're going to see that this weekend. Not many teams can have their backup quarterback come in. Their second string quarterback's a 4-star out of California. This guy's 6'5", 230 pounds, big guy. Their third string quarterback is one of the most hyped players to ever come into college football. And so obviously they have depth that BYU won't have, or at least doesn't have yet. But if BYU can get a really good game from their best players, like I said, start off hot, get the fans to believe, put some questions in Texas fans and Texas team's head, and then not only run the ball, but also stop the run. I think BYU has a chance in the fourth quarter. I
like it. You heard it here from Steve. I like those keys to the game. I think if we can do all those things we're at least going to cover, we might win this game. That has been the STLK and the UTA Cougars podcast. We will be back on this feed on Tuesday morning.